Hi everyone, it's Nicole for Waffle Flower, and today I have a couple of simple border scene cards to share with you featuring new stamps and dies from the September 2018 Waffle Flower release. I absolutely love these Halloween and holiday themed stamp sets. These are the Hocus Pocus and the Cookie Time stamp sets, and the images are very much in the same style, and I thought it would be really fun because they're more on the smaller side to create thin border scenes. This limits the amount of space you need to fill on the scene while still providing a really awesome looking scene card. This is a really quick and easy way to create a couple cards as well. The sentiments from Hocus Pocus you can mix and match and build your own, or there's already some pre-made ones. I love that even though it's kind of Halloween themed, I used sentiments for this to make it kind of more of a missing you type of card. That would be perfect to send during October maybe. And then of course Cookie Time is just a great holiday themed card. I could see giving this with a plate of cookies to neighbors or friends or family during the holiday season. I only used a portion of the images from this stamp set. There are just so many, you guys. I love both of these stamp sets. So very, very excited. And not only that, this is just a couple of stamp sets from the September release. Please make sure to visit my blog for information on all of the stamps and dies being released this month from Waffle Flower. My border strips are measured 2.25 inches by 5.5 inches, and these are trimmed from Bristol smooth cardstock. No fancy die cutting needed, just trim that strip. I inked up my Hocus Pocus one with black soot and wilted violet distress oxide ink. It's what you saw while I was talking there. Spritzed it with water from a distress sprayer. We're going to set that aside, let it air dry a little bit. I will tell you, because I'm going to do some heat embossing on that strip here in a little bit, and distress oxide inks, especially distress inks too, tend to stay wet a little bit longer. I am going to hit that with a heat tool to dry it faster so I can do some fun heat embossing and add even another layer on top of this fun strip. On some other scraps of Bristol smooth cardstock, this is a great way to use up your scraps because these images are pretty small. I'm going to stamp images from Hocus Pocus and then color them in with Zig Clean Color Real Brush markers. When I'm using Zig Clean Color Real Brush markers, these are water-based markers. I like using VersaFine ONYX black ink. This is my favorite ink for a nice black, really black outline. I love this ink, and it works with water-based markers. It does not work with alcohol ink-based markers like Copics, so I kind of reserve it for use with this kind of coloring. And then I'm simply coloring everything in. The marker colors I'm using are shown across the top of the screen. When I color with the Zigs, I color kind of opposite of how I do with Copics, and that is I lay down my dark color first and then blend out with my lighter color. Bristol smooth cardstock tends to be very forgiving. I know I mention this every time probably I use my Zigs, but in case this is your first time visiting me here, I very, very highly recommend Bristol smooth cardstock with your Zig Clean Color Real Brush markers. Until I started using these markers with this paper, I didn't really like them. You can see how smooth they blend, how the colors kind of just move together to create beautiful colored designs. I really, really highly recommend it. I think you will love the results you get. With other watercolor cardstock, I don't see the same results. I'm going to give you an example of this on the Cookie Time card. It didn't matter too much, and I knew this going in, but I wanted to color in the sentiment that reads Cookie Time, and I stamped it directly on my card base, which is Nina Heavyweight cardstock. They don't blend the same. Because it's such a small area, I went ahead and went for it, but normally, if I was coloring anything, any of these images, I would only do it on Bristol Smooth cardstock. Aren't these images cute and fun? I think it's really clever that not only can you create really fun Halloween cards, obviously, but I think that just the witchy theme of this and then the way you can mix and match sentiments in the stamp set is great as well. There is a wish you a happy birthday. So if you have anyone who has a October birthday, especially maybe later October, my daughter is one of those. She loves all things Halloween. She's somebody who would love that kind of a sentiment. Great for Halloween parties, just so many great things. I just think it's really, really fun. I like this stamp set a lot. This is the Solid Stars image from Hocus Pocus. There's also an outline, so if you'd rather color in your stars, you could do that as well. I wanted mine to be black, so I am stamping these with a clear embossing ink all over my background. Now you're going to notice that I don't have as many stars here on the border as I do in the finished card, and that's because after I kind of got some of my images adhered, I went back and added a few more. I felt like there was some open holes. But what I did was I stamped these with clear embossing ink, and I am using Hero Art's Black Sparkle Embossing Powder. I don't know if the black sparkle shows as well on camera, but in real life it has like some shimmer and sheen to it. There you can see it a little bit. So it's not just a flat black embossing powder, which I think that kind of shimmer and shine and the sparkly quality to this really add to the Hocus Pocus theme of this card. Because there's a lot of white space here, there's a couple things you can do to add interest. Yes, these are simple cards, but I love to be able to add interest in little subtle ways. And one of those is to extend some of the images above that border and also stamp my greetings below the border. But we want to add interest to this. So part of the greeting, the which I could and the you are or you here, were stamped with VersaFine black ink. Then we're going to take Hocus Pocus, place those in the Misty, and I did use the Misty for all of this. If you need to stamp something more than once, especially if you're stamping with a colorful ink and you're a little worried it won't stamp perfectly the first time, I highly recommend using a stamp positioner tool. I'm going to stamp Hocus Pocus with Wilted Violet, and that purple, that little pop of color in the sentiment adds such fun interest down there below the scene strip. Let's start adding all of our images now to the background, kind of starting with the witch and her cauldron, and then she's holding up her broomstick. There's also like this huge like ladle or spoon thing that you could do as well. I just loved that broom, so I had her holding it up there. And then, of course, the little, looks like she's mixing up a potion and it's exploded. I set that next to the cauldron. We've got a spider web. We've got the hanging spider, of course. I think that's a great addition. And at this point, I really felt like I needed a couple of extra images, but I wanted some of my Nuvo crystal drops in White Blizzard to start drying. So I'm going to go ahead and add those to my card. To the spider web, it's going to make it sparkly. To that little explosion cloud, glossy accents to the fire under the cauldron, and also to her little experiment. I decided I needed a moon to go up in the upper left corner. I needed a pile of bones, so I stamped multiples of those, and I think that's really going to do it. There are quite a few other small additional images, so you could definitely fill in with any of those if you wanted to. Add extra spider webs, you know, there's a little mushroom, lots of things you can do. Let's go ahead and die cut all these and then put them to, or adhere them to the card to finish it off. There are 2 cat images in this stamp set. I'm going to use the sitting cat. So we'll add the cat and the bones and the moon. Just a couple things left to do here. to finish off the card. I thought that the pile of bones would be a little more effective, so I stamped multiples of them. Don't be afraid to use multiples of designs from your stamp sets. It really can help maybe sometimes be more effective than just a single image. I'm going to add black glaze pen to the eyes on the witch to make them really stand out. We'll take a white pen, add some pen detail, add some Nuvo crystal drops in White Blizzard to the moon to make it sparkly, and then set this card aside to dry while we work on cookie time. These cute little elves are going to be on a green border instead of a spooky, creepy purple-black border. For that holiday feel, I'm mixing Mowed Lawn and Twisted Citron Distress ink, spritzing it with water from a distress sprayer again, blotting this dry. We won't be stamping anything on the background of this card, although you definitely could. I like to kind of lay out my stamps before I go ahead and stamp them. It gives me an idea of what all I need to fill in the space. I'm going to use all 4 of these little cookie bakers. We're going to put our sentiment down below again, just like we did. And then I know I want a scattering of stars kind of all over. There's a large and a small star here. And I'm pretty sure I'm going to need additional images, but until I get some of these stamped, I'm not exactly sure how many I'm going to need. Let's stamp our sentiment. And that's going to give you a good idea of the coloring on Neenah smooth white cardstock as opposed to Bristol. It just doesn't blend as nice. However, it's not going to bleed through the cardstock like Copics would, and I wanted the letters to match. I could have trimmed a strip and adhered it along the bottom edge, or trimmed a strip from Bristol smooth cardstock, but the area is so small that I just colored it in anyway. It's just a lot harder to blend with the markers on Neenah smooth cardstock than Bristol smooth cardstock. However, you can make it work if you want to, probably, but like I said, if it was a bigger image, I probably wouldn't do it because it frustrates me. So we've got our background in place. I have stamped my images, and now I'm coloring everything in with Zig Clean Color Real Brush markers. Again, I have shown the marker numbers across the top of the screen as I'm coloring. I love these little images, and just like with the Halloween set, this is just a portion of what you get in the stamp set. There is only the cookie time sentiment, so the sky's the limit. You could take any holiday stamp, greeting stamp set you have and incorporate it with these, and I think that would be so much fun. These are the full body length cookie baker images. There is also some that have the appearance more of standing behind a counter, which I think is really cute as well. I have plans to do more cards with this because around the holiday season, because I just think it's so super stinking fun. I really, really love this set. I think the design of both of these, they're designed by the same artist, you can tell. With the design of these stamps, I really am drawn to this style. I think they're just super, super cute. Coloring all of these in just takes a little bit of time. I have to say, these are probably 2 of the fastest cards I have ever done. I was kind of on a time crunch, and so I was trying to get them done before I left to go somewhere, and I believe both cards took me only an hour and 15 minutes, and for me that's really good. I tend to be a kind of slow card maker. At times it can take me, you know, quite a while. I start a card one day and I'll finish it the next. It just depends. These came together super fast. I love when I find a design that works really great and I can use it for multiple cards instead of just one specific. So even though these are Halloween and Christmas, there are other similar size and style especially, I mean, any brand, but I know Waffle Flower has some other stamp sets that are very similar, designed by the same artist, that would fit the scale of this border strip really well. So if you already have some of those, it would be really fun to create a whole bunch of other cards, maybe with the same design with those stamps. Once I have all of my images colored, we are going to die cut everything with the coordinating cookie time dies. I love that there are dies for all of these images. So everything I think in here, I mean, almost everything in each stamp set has a coordinating die, and really easy to die cut them. In fact, I did want to mention in Hocus Pocus, there's that hanging spider that I used on my card. You may have noticed that just the spider and the web had dies, not the little line coming down, the spider falling down there from the web. But the spider does have a die, so it makes it easy to stamp that image on your background and then just layer over the die cut spider on top of that, which is fantastic. I really like that. We're adhering all of our little images. I got my little gingerbread man that I'm going to have standing up on the cookie tray that the one little guy is holding. And I can see that I'm going to need a couple more images to kind of fill in. It feels a little bare to me. I've got my scattered stars. Again, this is where I kind of add some interest to the card by extending something up above, but not filling in that white space area. So we've got the stars on this card, the broomstick on the Hocus Pocus card. I filled in the stars with Nuvo crystal drops in White Blizzard. I stamped a couple of additional gingerbread men, one standing on the rolling pin and one standing by the little guy there. We have the other little guy or girl who's running, holding a tray behind her, and then of course a gift box there. We want to take a black pin, go in and add detail to the eyes on the gingerbread men and the faces that have eyes open. Take a white pin. We'll add a few little white pin details, subtle. I'm not going to go overboard here. They're just really subtle little highlights. And once I have that all done, that will finish up these simple border scene cards featuring new stamps and dies from the Waffle Flower September 2018 release. Thank you guys so much for joining me today for these 2 cards featuring Waffle Flower stamps and dies. The supplies I used to create my cards are listed and linked below the video here on YouTube. Here are a couple more videos featuring Waffle Flower stamps and dies that you might be interested in. Thank you guys so much for joining me today, and we'll see you next time.